Hello, everyone. Today is Monday, January 26th. Oh, I am so excited to be here with one of my favorite people on this planet, my friend Tiffany Olson. Oh, I have sat in Tiffany's office. Actually, I was thinking of how I was gonna introduce you, and one of the things um, that I remember most. I'm not going to tell about our our meetings, the things that I remember most about you, 'cause there's too many weird things.
Oh boy, I can think of
Not that
one.
you're the biggest weirdo ever. Oh God. But I was just thinking about how I met you, and it was in 2020. I remember I was just having a really, really hard time with people in my life, and all I kept thinking is what they should do. Like they needed therapy, they needed to go outside more. They needed to take care of themselves. Like, I just had a really long list of what these people should do to get better. And then I sat with it and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I've been saying for many years that any advice we have is actually what we need to be taking. And so I looked through my list of what I wanted everyone else to do. And at the top of the list was go to therapy. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's a good place for me to start. And so I called you and I just knew right away that it was such a good fit to to go and talk to you because you were everything's shaking here. I hit my desk. Um because you were somebody that was just really like interested in the bigger picture, of like, okay, let's look at what is consciousness? What does it mean to live a different life? What does it mean that our inside is actually creating our outer world? And so I went for my first session and I was just like hooked. Like I saw you every month for what was it, maybe like 5, 6 years, even no, 5 years. It must have been 5 years.
Yeah.
And so in those times, like I would sit and talk to you and just be like, this would be the best podcast episode ever. Like, just to be able to talk about these things. And I feel like oftentimes there's very few people in the world that get me and what I'm saying. And you're one of them. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do this and be able to share these conversations with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh,
thank you for being that person.
well, thank you. It's
So
been
I
a good journey so far.
I know it's exciting. So I guess the first thing that we can do is just tell people a little bit about you because you have an incredible business and you do some incredible work for the people in Prince Albert.
Well, okay. A little bit about me. Where do you want this story to begin?
Wherever it starts.
Wherever does this begin? Um, Maybe I'll talk a little bit about like the where it really begins because I don't think without that part of the story it would be it will all make sense, I guess. So, uh, my desire to become a therapist. I think probably if I reflect back in my life as a young person, we all are young and we have issues and things like that. So as a young person, I'm sure I had some dysfunction.
Not like the rest of us, hey,
No,
like.
no. And I think there was like some really hard times where I was like young, probably started therapy around the age of 19. I was always interested in people. I was always interested in the way people are. Like, how come they're the way they are? That was always the thing. And I like listening to stories and stuff like that. And so, um, I had started my own therapy then, and I was I had went through a couple just because of course I think you have to find your
Mhm.
proper fit, and I had a few good therapists there, but there was one in particular that really stuck out with me, and it was a real love-hate relationship. I mean, this guy, oh man, I remember leaving the session, I'd be like, I'm never going back to that guy. ever again. I hate him, you know. And he was kind of the inspiration. I think there was one point, and I'll never forget it. It, I think, changed the trajectory of my life, which was we were sitting in the session, and he challenged me so much. Like, that was the love hate part of it. And yet I felt like he got me, and I'm sure he'd probably seen right through me. But at the time, I'm a kid, and I knew a lot. He was just an old guy in a suit. I even, I think, said that at one point. But he also was a real person. He was a real person, um, which I think inspired me. So he asked me one time, if you could do anything you ever wanted to do, what would you want to do? And I said, well, I would do what you. And he said, well, why don't you do it then? And I said, well, I can't. And he said, how come? He was very frank, very abrupt. He wasn't unkind, but he was very direct in his approach. I said, well, I'm not smart enough. And I remember him saying, who told you that? And
Mm.
I said, well, I don't know. I just am. And he said, no, who told you that you weren't smart enough to do this? And I said, well, what would you have to do? He said, did you have to go to university? And I was like, well, university? I barely made it through high school. Like, I went back an extra year. And he challenged me, because I came from, a family that was well intentioned. And I think, the way we learn, right? We learn ceilings to our learning.
Mm.
So, yeah, that kind of started it. Like, that started it. I think by the time I was 24, I was in university. I went as an older person, and then I did my education. During that time, I had gotten pregnant with my first son and continued to do the university thing. And then by the time I was completing it, I was pregnant with my second son and graduated from university, something I never thought I could do because I somehow had a roommate in my head that told me I wasn't smart enough to go. Apparently, I guess I was. But the end goal always was, I mean, I always wanted to work at mental health. I always wanted to be a therapist. So I was lucky enough to be hired at the health region after my practicum. I did my major practicum at mental health, and I loved it. It was a rich experience. They hired me, and I worked with the health region for just maybe over 10 years when I started kind of, um, like, I always wanted to end up in private practice. And fortunately, I knew somebody who, um, I'd always known, my colleague, and she was somebody who I respected just because of the way that she was. She was also a direct person. There was never any guesswork with her, and she was real. And her and I sat down, had a coffee one day, and we talked about it. And over years of kind of collaborating, finally the dream became the reality. So here we are.
Wow.
We've been open now. We'll be going on. So, I mean, at the time, going back, I was at the health region when we decided to open up private practice. I did private practice part time, worked at the health region at mental health outpatients, and she worked part time and then at her other job. Um, and eventually we were busy enough that I could leave the health region. It didn't take that long
Mm.
actually either, which was really very exciting. We have some very big dreams, and we work well together. And yeah, I always tease her because I'm like, she's my life partner, which, I mean, we've been doing life together here for 11 years. And yeah, 11 years later, here we are. So
Wow, that is so amazing.
yeah.
It's interesting because now I want to get into it because you said something really powerful, and that was how people that we grow up with have the ceilings.
Hmm.
And, I meditate every day for at least an hour. I have been since 2016. I've been doing this energy work now for like 19 years. And what continues to show up is the limiting beliefs that we hold.
Mm-hmm.
And, so every day I journal, I write, I make videos, and I talk about it. So it's like every day I'm facing something new. Like I'm facing some thought that shows up or some message from spirit or whatever it is. And then what I feel I'm good at is just marinating the fuck out of it. Like just sitting with it and asking the question of like, why is this the way it is? Just like you said. And what I'm really, really recognizing is number one, our parents did the very best that they
Yeah.
knew how to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're all walking around trying to be nice because we don't want to say anything rude about our parents. So we don't want to face a lot of truth, which is what our parents taught us wasn't really
Yeah.
like some of it was based in truth, but a lot of it was based in limits and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now is a really good time on the planet to start to crack that shit open because if we don't, we're in that glass box forever. Like you will stay in there until you break yourself free.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so important for us to start to do this. But, we have a lot of people that are stuck in the blame game. And that's not what we're talking about, right? Because we don't want to blame anybody. We want to break free of that, but we want to see the truth and speak it out, but get to the next phase of it, which is gaining wisdom from it. You
Yeah.
know, this is what happened, this is what I believe, and now what do I do with this?
Absolutely. I love that you, yeah, I love that you say that. I mean, it's so funny. Yeah, you know, the limiting beliefs, I just, I agree. I think there's two truths that can be held at the same time.
Mm,
When it comes to, I mean, I think when I look at the work that I do now, I recognize like, the theory for me really helps put the puzzle together in the sense of like, okay, I can understand this now when it shows up in a counseling session or a session, that this is attachment theory and all of this ties in together, right? But I love the connection and then people excuse me. Yeah, like it is a blame game, I guess, to some extent. Like I think we look for reasons as to why we're the way that we are, right? I'm
mm-hmm,
this way because I was this happened to me. And I understand that. I think it's like understanding the effects, but then also not getting trapped in that narrative of our life and that, not letting that be the ceiling. I
mm-hmm,
think that it takes a lot to recognize that our life is can be endless. It can be vast and large and unapologetic and real and all of the things that I think, when I think of Maslow's hierarchy, I think of like the top point being self actualization. And I think that's really where it's at when you start asking yourself, like, who am I? Those are big questions.
mm,
Who am I? What do I stand for? Um, how do I choose to live despite all? You know,
mm. Oh,
I am,
that's a big one.
yeah, I'm all about, and I guess, maybe sometimes, um, like, how do I choose to live the rest of my days despite all of this? How do I resolve these things with myself to make peace with myself so that I'm not held captive anymore?
Well, and the interesting thing is it's so easy to get stuck in a trap of, like I've gone through a lot of trauma in the last 10 years, multiple cancers, my mom dying suddenly, divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to feel um like life is just really shit on us. like royally. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how much more can a fucking person go through? Like, literally, it's been 10 years of hell for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start to realize that every other person on the planet has trauma,
Mm-hmm.
there is not a person out there that doesn't have some kind of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's not another person out there that isn't struggling in some way, shape, or form. But the interesting thing is, for so many years, and I think social media has maybe kind of made this a little bit worse. I think that there's great things about it.
Yeah.
But what everybody started doing is, I'm going to post the best picture of my kids. I'm going to post the best picture of myself today. I'm going to take a picture from this angle because my ass is flat, and if I take a picture from the other angle, it's going to look like SpongeBob. It's like people want to show us their best angles, their best stories, their wins, how beautiful their house looks. It's like, you don't fucking look like that all the time. Your house isn't clean all the time. Your shit is not together every single day. And that has led us all to this place of, when our kids are dirty, when our kids are fighting, when our house is dirty, when our, body doesn't look the way it does in the magazines, we're like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? And that is shame. Like, shame is, there's something wrong with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I feel like it's so important for us to start to realize, that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I do everything I do, is to share with people where it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we're not going to stay stuck in it. But when we start to realize that everybody's struggling in some way, it's like, oh my God, you mean it's okay for me to share this? It's okay for me to say I cried 6 times last week. It's okay for me to say that I don't love my kids every day. Like, it's okay. Our kids don't love us every day. Like, how could they? Like, right? But it's like we're all walking around with these best kept secrets, and we're just like ready to fucking snap at any time with all of this, hanging on to all of this.
Yeah. It makes me think of like Brené Brown says that secrecy,
Mm.
shame, right?
Actually, that's where I got that from.
Yeah, yeah. Secrecy breeds shame. And absolutely, I think that's the thing, like to be fully present and authentic as a human being. I mean, of course, I think we have people that are safe to share our stories with. Not everybody has the privilege to have a seat at our table. Kind of, that's my
Mm.
analogy. I think that like we have a imaginary dining room table in our mind, and there's people that get seats there, and they're the people that can hold that space for us, and be comfortable with the uncomfortable feelings. And I think if that was the thing that we can learn how to make peace with, is like, how is it that I can make friends with all pieces of me, talk
Mm.
about them in a way where I have the vulnerability to connect to people, because those are the people that, very hard to connect to, right? The people that aren't showing up necessarily. And I mean, that's okay. That's where they're at on their journey.
Mhm.
Um, but like I'm not, looking back in my own life, I'm like, okay, um, and it's just your own dysfunction that shows up sometimes, even being that mom, like, oh, I have to stay up till 3 in the morning and make cupcakes. And like, oh no, I can go to Safeway and I can buy them and I don't have to feel bad about it. Like the kids are probably going to like them just the same. So, it's like
Mhm.
taking the pressure off of ourselves by saying like, here I am and I'm flawed and I'm human and I'm comfortable enough in my own skin to share this with people. And it maybe not everybody, I'm not going to scream on the, not everyone gets to have a seat at our table, but the ones that
Right.
do, it's beautiful when we can find those people and not, you know, suffer in our own silence or our pain.
Mm.
I mean, what, you have your people, right? Like, okay, something big's going on in your life and you're like, oh, I got to call up so and so, because they're the people that can wade through it with you, and they're not afraid of it, and they'll also ask you the hard questions, and they're like those are the people.
And that's really interesting that you say that. I did a podcast with my friend Crystal a few weeks ago, and
Saw that.
w- oh yeah,
Hmm.
well, we were talking about, holding space for someone,
Yeah.
and how often, and I'm guilty of it, definitely, that I always, because I've been a healer for how many years now, like 19 years now. So I always felt like I had to have the answers for people. I always had to help people. I
Mm,
always had to, you know, but what I'm recognizing now, like I said, if you have advice for anyone, it's actually what you're supposed to hear.
hmm.
But what we really, really want are those people in our lives that don't get stuck in the shit show with us.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's okay to vent. We all need to vent. Like, we can talk about the asshole, or whatever's going on, but we don't want the friend that gets stuck in the victim with us and gets stuck in the
Yeah.
blame game. It's like, just listening, literally just listening, and holding that space without telling us what to do. Because when you have advice for someone else, it's through your filters too, right?
Absolutely.
So I find that that's really important to bring that up. And, that's what a really great therapist would do, is not have advice, but help you find your own answers in your heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I mean, that's the thing, like curiosity.
That's a
You know,
good word.
curiosity always, hands down, be the dumbest person in the room on purpose. Always.
Ooh.
Always, because you know what? Here's the thing.
I've
And
never, so I don't mean to cut you off, but I've never heard that before. I
you know,
love that.
somewhere along the lines, like I'm such a nerd, like a crazy nerd. Somewhere along the lines, I'm sure. Actually, I bet you any money I bet you any money if I had to reference somebody for something like that or in that message, it probably would have been Robin Sharma. Actually,
Mm.
gosh, I mean, our journeys take so many roads, right? And
Mm-hmm.
our learning does too. And so, I mean, I went through like, I think since I've been 20, like, I've literally been just wanting to, maybe like learn, like learn more, learn more, learn more. But so I think it was him that might have even said, like, be purposely curious, like you'll get so much more information there. My colleague Erin always says this, and I love this about her. She's such a wise. I work with an amazing group of ladies here, and so we get to have our little touch bases with each other. We're a good support team for each other, and I always chuckle laughing. She's always like, there's a difference between being interested or interesting. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, good point. Like, interested is that I am curious about your struggle. Like, oh, okay, Chantelle calls me up, and I'm asking questions like, how does that feel for you? What is that like? Tell me how you're getting through it. Like, it's all pro solution questions of you figuring out your way. I'm holding space for you, but I don't want to give you advice about it.
Mm.
It's like planting seeds. It's like saying, so if you maybe have like even a limiting belief on yourself, in therapy world, we'd call it cognitive behavioral therapy, but I would say something like, have you thought of it this way? Is this
Mm.
planting seeds? Is this getting, because the thing is you're right. When we listen to stories, we have our filter, our lens that we've, like, it's like sunglasses. I'm wearing pink ones today and you're wearing blue ones, and we see the world differently on the same day because our
Mm-hmm.
sunglasses, like, our lens of the world is shaped by how we were socialized in our family, what experiences we had as children, were our needs met, did we have parents that were also anxious and then they maybe taught us a little bit about that. So when I'm hearing someone, I don't want to, and I probably will still miss the mark even if I try, like even reframing. So what I'm hearing you say is all these things. Like, curiosity is the best thing. Is truly to understand someone, right? And not to be, you know, like, interested rather than being interesting, which is, I'm interesting, let's just talk about me. You know what I
Oh
mean?
boy, that is so powerful. Um, and I'm just going to use an example here to share with other people like what we're talking about too, because I was sexually molested when I was 4 by a babysitter's son.
Hmm.
So that set up a lot for me, like,
Hmm.
about sexuality and men,
Yeah.
and they cannot be trusted.
Hmm.
And I would say that I don't know if there was a job I ever had where there wasn't a creepy man in charge
Right.
for many, many years. So, if somebody were to come to me, as a friend or a client or whatever it is, and I would, get involved in their story,
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, yeah, men can't be trusted. Like, what are you doing? Don't
Yeah.
trust men. Do you know what I mean? Where it's just, I feel like there could be 12 different answers
Yeah.
that could apply to a situation.
Yeah.
And yes, at some like sometimes we need to go into, well, I mean, we always need to go into our heart, but sometimes the answer is stay away from him, he can't be trusted. But then other times the answer could be like lean into this relationship, because you being in a relationship that isn't healthy right now is what's going to teach you the most.
Yeah.
And I just went through this. It was just like the biggest pendulum I've ever been on, where when I was with this person, I felt like he was the nicest person in the world. He held me. I had never had a man hold me before,
Yeah.
not asking me questions, not trying to get to know me, just literally holding me.
Yeah.
My nervous system needed that
Hmm.
because of everything that I had been through all of these years. I needed that. And I started to actually question my sanity for a while, because then I would get the messages from my heart, the same fucking place. And it's like, yeah, this guy is not the guy for you. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. But then I'd be with him and I'm like, what is the truth? But the point was, I needed to feel safe. I needed to understand that men could
Hmm.
hold you and not want to use you for
Hmm.
sex or whatever it may be, right? I needed that. I needed that. So I needed to stay in this, friendship or whatever it was, to recognize these things and to prove those belief systems that they were wrong.
Yeah.
Like, not all men are pigs, not all men are creeps, not all men are dicks.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. But then there was a point where it's like, like this isn't for me.
Well, it's
Like, do
kind
you know
of
what I mean?
it's kind of like your grade 12
It's
jeans. You
like
grew out of them. You know,
it's so true. It's
like,
so funny.
it
But
is.
that's so that's where it's like, I mean, I had one of my friends and she's just like, from day fucking one, like, this is not the guy for you. Like, what are you doing wasting your time with this guy? He does this, he does that. She just saw it, right? But I needed to go through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just and then so anyway, that's my point about sometimes people in our lives can do the stupidest things, and all we need to do is just sit back and watch it, because if we try to lead them, they're not going to learn their lessons. And that's a hard thing, especially when it's our kids and our loved ones.
Oh my goodness, there's just like so much things. Like my mind is so busy right now. I'm like, oh my god, like, where do I go with this? There's so much one can say about this, so I'm gonna try and be purposeful in my points. But the self awareness. Okay, first of all, self awareness of the story, right? and the programming, right? So, like,
Mhm.
I think if we have these stories, first of all, we have a responsibility to ourselves as an adult version of ourselves. And I think of like internal family systems where we talk about the parts of us, right? The 4-year-old scared little
Mm.
person, and how do we learn how to soothe and self-regulate as an adult? So recognizing that, but also recognizing that too, when we do go through traumatic experiences as a child, that literally shapes our neural pathways to rewire themselves, so that we are actually, how I would draw a comparison to is that when you're, revving a car and it's higher RPM, and then when you let your foot off the pedal, it's like resting phase. Well, I mean, people with anxiety that have had traumas or adverse experiences, I don't really like the word trauma necessarily, so I might
Mm.
use adverse, if experiences. But having that, we have to recognize, like, yes, now there's some work to be done there on how I learned how to self-regulate. What is the belief systems? And that ties into a little bit of the EMDR that I do work with, because sometimes talk therapy is helpful, but we do a little bit more with the reorganizing. And again, then the awareness of, like, being an adult woman, like you said, and you're learning, like, these experiences with somebody that comes into your life. That to me reminds me of all of, like, Ram Dass teachings, saying, we're all just walking each other home.
Mm.
And I do feel that. I feel that because I'm sure you feel that as like a healer, or that we get this, as long as we're open to having these experiences, right? Like, sure, I might be a therapist, but many times, if not all the time, I'm learning more about myself, and I have such a genuine appreciation for humans, and the resiliency and the determination and the strength that it shows to do this hard work, to show up. Like you said, I'm showing up to my therapy appointment and I'm actually telling the truth.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah,
and I mean,
right?
I'm not saying that I don't think, like, I've been that person, I mean, and I'm not picking on people that I work with. I'm actually saying from my point of view, I am the client. Every good therapist needs a great therapist. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's real when we start showing up for our lives and being vulnerable, and this, not the secrecy, we start talking about these things. But again, tying back to that, like, even if there's a season of growth, like, and I mean, nobody can tell you that either. Nobody can say, like, I mean, I understand all these people love Chantelle. We love her. We've known her whole life. We're her bestest friends. We went to school with her. And we know that, like, we're telling her this because we love her so much, right? But, like, even your journey, like, I learned something really good from this person. I think we have a choice to even see our interactions with people, like, I mean, I think of it as a victim mentality, like how we speak about people. Do I have to be unkind? Do I want to be a victim here and blame them? Well, if it wasn't for them being such a crappy person, then, well, no, actually, I think your attitude is maybe a problem. Like, like,
Yeah.
how do we learn? And I think that's the thing, how do we start looking at it as being a place of, like, you know, our own power. Like, sure, as a child, our trust is betrayed by maybe people that were close to us, but that's something that we learn if we do the work, is that, it's not even about trusting other people. It's about trusting myself to know when this journey is over and I remove myself from a situation that isn't working anymore for me. And it's not full of hate either. It's not that I'm, I looking at someone saying, well, it's him, it's his fault. No, it can be just simply a conversation where this isn't working for me anymore. Like, this doesn't work for my soul and my spiritual journey, or whatever you want to call it, right? So,
Well, and one thing that's really becoming clear to me lately is like, because I've gone through so much in the last 10 years, like divorce and all the cancers, like I really did a lot of inner work. Like everything
Oh,
that showed up was a part of my journey, and it helped me become stronger and more resilient and more loving and all of those things, so like obviously I'm not perfect, never will be, but I keep growing and growing. But what I really recognized was how um how I get very I'm trying to think of the word, how people get their claws in me when they're in the victim. Like how it's like I feel sorry for people that have gone through trauma. And, like I'm just looking back on my life with a lot of relationships that I've been in. And, it's like this poor me. This is what my ex-wife did to me. And this is what is happening to me. And, I would get into this like, oh my God, that's really sad. Like, oh, like, you poor thing. Like, it's so sad that this happened to you. And lately, I've been doing a lot of inner healing, and I'm like, that's not my fucking problem. And the fact that you're still stuck in that story doesn't make you a really, and I'm not here to like to judge or say
no.
it's not a good man, but it's certainly not an empowered, like it's not, that's not an empowered person. If you can sit down, like, because what we're talking about is we need to face the truth about our past and the things that happened to us.
Mhm.
Facing it is different than blaming it,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know because when
Abs-
you're blaming it, like that's not empowered. And what I've seen, and I haven't talked to you about this, but this is really cool to me because I've been telling you all these years about the Chinese medicine and what I love so much. But the Chinese elements go from fire, earth, metal, water, wood. But when worry is the water element,
mhm,
that's where we start to face what makes us afraid.
mhm,
Anything other than love is fear, right? So we start
mhm,
to face like, oh, okay, why do I believe this, and why did this happen, and why did that happen? So we face it. At first it makes us fucking angry. A lot of people skip that step. They don't want to be angry because we have to be nice. But there's a point where we start to see the truth and we're like, that is fucking bullshit.
mhm.
We need to go there. I actually wrote a book a couple of years called The Other Side of Fuckery. And what that book was me just like starting to see everything in my life that happened, that I planted my head so deep in the sand because I never wanted to confront people. I was too afraid.
Yeah.
And when I started to face it, it made me so fucking angry that this person did this and that person did that. But we can't stay there. Like, you have to get angry about it because anger is what moves our emotions, it moves us through. On the other side of the anger is the sadness.
Mm.
We
Yeah, it's like,
cry that shit out.
yeah. Yeah, it's like
And
the
then after we cry, oh, sorry.
no, no, no. It's just the tip of the iceberg, eh? Anger always is that tip of the iceberg. Totally.
Yeah. And then when we're after we cry, because some people get stuck in the crying, then like you don't cry about it for the next 27 years. You cry it out. But then at some point, it's like, that's when we look back. I call it the other side of fuckery.
Yeah.
And that is when we look back and we're like, holy shit, that is what needed to happen because this is the wisdom that I get. I'm not worried anymore. I'm wise because of it.
Yeah.
And that next step is surrender. And that's where we're just like, oh yeah, I'm just letting this go. This isn't my problem anymore. I'm not blaming anymore. I'm not complaining. I don't have to feel sorry for these people either.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's all a part of the process. But some people, they cling to the anger and they do not ever let go, or they cling to the sadness and they do not let go.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and I think that is. Yeah, for whatever purpose that serves. And I think that's a really good question. Like, when we're in feeling or in struggle, and like you said, like, if we could make friends with all of our feelings, right? First,
Mhm.
it's okay to be angry. It doesn't make me a bad person or an unkind person. I can still be a kind person and have natural feelings. I mean, the difference would be is if I throat punch you and I'm thinking do that, like, but again, and that's, lots to do with regulation and all of that. But I think the getting stuck in that narrative, right? Like, you're right, everything can be purposeful if we choose to see it that way. And I think that's part of the perspective too, is like, when we're listening to that internal dialogue that we all have the roommate in our head that says, well, I'm gonna make myself feel sorry for myself today. And I don't think we do that
Mhm.
consciously, but I think if you have the awareness of like, what am I thinking, and is this true? I mean, is this true? What if it wasn't true? Well,
Mhm.
challenge ourselves a little bit. And I mean, how do we like the evolution of ourselves, right? I mean, ever evolving, right? Like, think about
Mhm.
your wise version of yourself, even time traveling back to a younger version of yourself. Like, what kind of advice would you even give yourself? And I agree, like, there's these motions that we go through, and everybody has, like, again, their own unique journey, right? So when you get to that surrender part where you're like, yeah, I can't control everything, I can't manage people, I'm not interested in that. And recognizing, like, I can hold space for people if I want to, but if I have the capacity or whatever. But, like, again, and you probably even noticed that with your, like, there's different points of your life where you evaluate even, like, circles of people that you choose to hang out with or not.
Mhm.
Like the energy, like, there are some people that we do a great disservice for by just being available, for the complaints. And I mean, so am I going to be mad at them? Like, oh, so and so is calling me again. It's probably another problem. Okay, well, like, they're not bad people. They're just in a different part of their journey than I am, maybe,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I send them a bunch of love in my heart, and I wish them the best. I might not tell them that, so probably be maybe offended by that. But, I mean, yeah, I just, we choose. I guess it comes down to, like, a choice. And what are we choosing today?
Yeah. And I've noticed it in myself. Like the reason I can see the truth about other people is because I'm pretty good at self-reflection. And I notice so much how I make fucking mountains out of molehills.
Yeah,
Like, and I I I actually feel bad for my kids because
aw,
even though I know I'm doing it, sometimes I can't stop myself.
yeah,
It's like I really really recognized this weekend that I always expect people to yell at me and shame me.
yeah,
And so texting is the worst thing for me
yeah,
because every time I get a text, there's a spin that I can put on it.
yeah, yeah,
Like, right? It's like, oh, well, this person said this. Well, they must have meant this and they must have meant that. And so then immediately I feel myself trying to set boundaries. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not doing this. I don't fucking care. I don't need to talk to you anymore. Like, it's like serious overreaction. But in my mind, I feel like I'm actually protecting myself.
yeah, 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 for sure.
But what's been happening in my life is I've really, really recognized that I do need to set boundaries for some people,
Hmm.
but then I'm setting the same boundary for everybody. And these poor fuckers in my life that are like innocent are getting the same treatment. It's like, Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need to take this fucking bullshit. Well, they're just like literally asking me a question.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm just like, okay, so now I had some open conversations this weekend and some big deep apologies of, you know what, this is where I struggle. And like I mean, to be able to it's hard to be like vulnerable with our kids sometimes and
Mhm.
just say, yeah, like this is a really, I know I'm wrong.
Yeah.
This is my wound and I'm working it through. But you know, it's kind of like and I'm just speaking about this because I'm wondering, as parents, do we all feel like if we're falling off of that pedestal that we're failing? And I we're not failing because our kids need to see us fall and get back up. And that's been the hardest thing for me is just like telling my kids that, you know, a couple of years ago it was that I had PTSD, you know, and they already knew it. They're like, "You didn't know that?" Like, you know, they could already tell that something
Like,
wasn't right with mom. But you know, as I've healed through that journey, now I'm recognizing that there are some strong expectations of people to be assholes. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. I just think that's so interesting. Like, yeah. Kind of, well, I think like a lot of it with, I love, um, I really liked and appreciated like Dr. Shafali when she wrote some of her conscious parent, the conscious parent and the awakened family, um, because like again, the road is paved to hell with good intentions, right? The old saying, and I think about that. Like all parents, I think, yeah, I always think of that. Like, no parent has a baby and they've delivered it and they're looking at it and they're like, I'm going to mess you up real good. Like, nobody thinks that way when they have babies. I don't believe they do. I do believe that people are typically trying to do the best that you can. I think that there's a difference in, like you said earlier, being more conscious. Um, Perhaps people have different callings at different points in life, and maybe for you, when you're saying like, in the last 10 years, like when you think about your own personal growth, like when has it been in the last 10 years? Probably,
Hmm.
right? Like easy times make smart people, like wise people. And I think that's the difference, right? Is like even just growing through that, like perhaps not always. I'm sure there are days where you were like, I do not see cancer as an opportunity here. Like,
Oh,
I'm sure of that. But somehow there's some strength and resilience that you found time and time again. Never mind, it wasn't just one diagnosis, right? I mean, so there's time and time where you keep choosing to live your life the way that you see fit. And there was, I'm sure, incredibly difficult days that like nobody knows about that, but here you are. Here you are.
well, and you know, interestingly enough, the other day I got this really cool awareness that um when every time I was diagnosed with something or, you know, my mom died or like the ass literally fell out of my life,
Yeah.
every time that happened, I was like, there's no fucking way that this is going to ruin my life.
Yeah.
You know, there's just this real stubbornness in me, and there always has been, which probably drove my parents crazy, but it's also what got me through this, like every challenge. Because what I decided, you know, the very first cancer diagnosis, I was like, every fucking day I'm going to find peace and I'm going to feel joy, like every single day. So every single day I would write things that I was grateful for, 5 things I was grateful for.
Mm,
I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 things that I was really fucking angry about.
mhm.
And then it was always one thing to look forward to. Sometimes it was like, something that I was going to eat or watch a movie or play with my kids. But I always knew that this wasn't going to steal my fucking life because I didn't know if I was going to die. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know how many months or days some days I didn't know if I had fucking minutes to live.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I better get good and fucking serious about finding some peace and joy here because I don't know how much time I have left.
Hmm.
But that is what we all get to do is no matter how hard it is. And it's interesting because I said it for years. No matter how hard life gets, find peace and joy. Well, yeah, when you're fucking riding on the top of the wave, easy for you to say,
Yeah.
but it's interesting that life used me and knocked me down again and again and again. And now I get to be the person that says, yep, whatever the fuck happens, you can find peace and you can find joy. Like, no
Hmm.
matter what, it's always available.
That's so interesting that you say that. Like, I think my mom always said this as like growing up. I remember her saying, just pride comes before the fall. I never
Mm,
really think I understood that. Like, I mean, I think there's this humility is the hardest thing I think for anybody to apply. I mean, don't we all like to be right and don't we all like to be justified and all of those things? And I think that's really a true thing. Like, and I guess when I hear like when we're talking about all the things like cancer, well, that humbles you pretty quickly and
mm-hmm,
things very real very quickly, and everything else that comes with that. And then divorce humbles you in many ways, and having children definitely is like the game changer. Like, I mean, I
mm-hmm,
always, like, going back to, I guess I got a little bit off the topic. I hope people can follow that too. Is that going back to Dr. Shafali? Like, I agree with that whole premise of like our children are here to teach us about the
mm,
things that we need to heal within ourselves, because that's the thing, you know, like I worked with families for, and I mean, I still do, but primarily for families many years. And that was always the thing, kids are great teachers if we just take a moment just to learn from them, because like they're going to show us where we need to do that work, like showing up for your kids. And those are hard things to do, like to actually um say like, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, like I shouldn't have spoken to you that way, and there's no excuse for that, you know
mm-hmm.
like, I mean, owning our story instead of being the parent that's like, well, I wouldn't have spoke to you if you guys wouldn't have been hitting each other for. And I mean, I get it, we all have thresholds, right? We got a threshold, everybody does. But like, basically me blaming my children for my own dysregulation because I can't manage myself or take a time out when I need to. Like, my famous line around my house is I gotta take a minute to win it. Like, I always say things like that. I mean, as the years go by, like, it's lessened because little kids are harder.
Oh
They
yeah.
challenge you to really learn patience and humility and all of that.
Well, and you know what I'm like really what you said is just so true because we come from this era of control.
Hmm.
And there is nothing less effective in relationships
Yeah.
as control. Like, and I like I said, I'm learning on the fly with my teenagers.
Yeah.
And it's like the more you try to control them, the more they push back.
Hmm.
And it is always about, okay, so what am I like, because I still do it. It's like, well, what the fuck, why are they doing that, and why would they say it this way, and like, what the fuck. But seriously, and this has happened so many times now, I'm just starting to not question it. I'm still not great at it, but It's always me.
Yep.
It's always,
100%.
always me. Like, that is hard for a really stubborn person. But I can honestly, I had a conversation with my son today. I was like, you know, bud, I just want you to know that you've been right 110 fucking percent of the time.
Yeah.
It's always, I'm not saying our kids are perfect,
No.
but every time there's been a disagreement,
Yeah.
it's been me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I guess it's like the common denominator thing in every disagreement I've ever had. I've been the common denominator. So, I mean, I guess like everybody, we all have our blind spots, right?
Hmm.
That's why we have good people in our life to point them out when we are, you know, not seeing it, because again, that's why we have people in our life to kind of say, okay, have you thought of it this way? Or hey, I'm just wondering if, like, I like those people that challenge me, in
Hmm.
ways that are kind and compassionate, not with judgment or shaming. I think there's ways of delivering these things, and also to ourselves, even when we're reflecting on ourselves, like, how do I even think about myself with kindness and compassion? No one gave us an instruction booklet on how to
Oh,
do this, right? So, like, parenting, dating, being a wife, doing this, that, it's just trial and error. Like, hey, I'm just trying to do better each day. And yeah, but I'm not going to sit around and, uh, and I mean, I think there are different, again, growth phases or whatever you want to call it. But like, there's some people that will just have these callings in life that will just time, it's time to learn more, or the awareness, the aha moments, even when you see something differently, and you start realizing, oh yes, I'm the common denominator in every interaction that I have in my life.
you know, boy, oh boy, I just had a huge awareness.
Okay.
At the beginning of the conversation, you said, be curious
Yeah.
and always be interested instead of interesting.
Hmm.
Well, holy shit, after this whole conversation, now I'm looking at my parenting and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
if I would listen first and believe what they're saying instead of, putting it through 10 filters of what I was treated like before.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you were saying, is to be curious, like really ask our kids, like, what did you mean by that? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say? But we don't do that. We like fly off the fucking handle. We take it personally,
Yeah.
and then we're like already making plans of this and that and the other thing. But these poor kids, all they want is to be heard.
Well, that's exactly it. Like, that's exactly what Dr. Shafali talks about, is like, our children want to be seen. I mean, think
Mm.
about how anybody can reflect on their lives and say, like, yeah, I wish I was understood, or like, even in relationships with partners, or I want them to see me or hear me. And like, really, that's the gift that we can give, right?
Mm.
Because again, that's our awareness, that's our job, to be aware of when we're triggered and we have this whole narrative about this person, whatever they're saying to me, and of course we're hearing it through our purple sunglasses or whatever color it is, that day.
Mhm.
Um, and nobody does a really good job. I don't. I mean, maybe Sadhguru, maybe Ram Dass figured this all out. Like, I really respect kind of the Eastern philosophy, um, in the sense of like surrender,
Mhm.
without judgment, curiosity. Those things are really great principles. But like, when we truly do get curious about people, like, we could be proven wrong with the judgment that we had about them in the first place. Like, you think about, like, I think about some of the best things that have ever happened to me, right? Where I'm like, think about when you've been misjudged, or like maybe when we've been misjudged or we've judged other people. Well, that's us projecting our issues all over it, and we do that with our
Mm.
children too, because somehow we think we know so much about everything. And here's the thing that I'm sure, as you being a stubborn kid, and I was too, is that the last thing we needed was somebody telling us that you know what to do and what not to do. Because what mom would say, something like, I remember my mom saying something to me around like, you make sure you get off this school bus tonight. It was a Friday night. She would say, you make sure you come home on that school bus, and I'd be like, nope, and I'd disappear for the weekend. And my dad would look for me, driving around. Like, thank God I lived in a small community, because all of a sudden everyone's like, you're a kid and you're doing bad things. Like, you're like, I'm not going home. I'm gonna party with my friends. And that was kind of like the thing. And you're like, well, I think if it was rather coming, and I mean, they loved me, right? Like, they didn't want, they wanted best for me, and yet it came out like control. And from a strong-willed kid perspective, oh, guess what? I am going to do everything the wrong way. And that is how I learned. Because here's the thing, I don't think I turned out too bad being that kid. Like, I was that kid that I'm sure many people were like, least likely to succeed in life. I don't know. Maybe that would have been me, because I don't think that there would have been many in my small town that would have been like, yes, Tiffany Olson is going to become a mental health clinical therapist. She's going to own her own business with a colleague, and she's, going to be okay. I was a kid that like got a partial in grade 10, and because I had too much fun. I wanted to have fun with my friends, and like, so our errors wrong, and yet parents are so uncomfortable letting their kids, have these lessons. Like, there's ways that we can guide our kids, the way that we talk about them, but like letting them make decisions so that they have confidence. Because I can tell you one thing, like, as rebellious as I was as a kid, like I had that, but I was also one of those kids that grew up later on in life, and I couldn't make a decision for myself either,
Mm.
really. I mean, I would rebel, but you know what? I was a people pleaser, because, like, of course, you always want to please. It was my own dysfunction, and I think that's the thing when we start looking at kids and showing up, like as a mom, like you said, I'm apologetic to my kids when I need to be, but we have real conversations, like they're brainstorm sessions. Like, when one of my kids has this great idea, well, it's a great idea. I'm not going to tell him it's not. Like, first of all, I'm not putting a ceiling on his limits. Like, I always tell my
Mm.
kids, don't have ceilings.
Oh, wow.
Like, do what you want to do. And I mean, guess what, if you have higher ceilings, you're going to have to put some grind time in, because I mean, all of this
Right.
happen because you sit around and hope that it'll happen. Like, you got to work at it. You got to have failures. You got to recalibrate. Like, when things don't go right,
Mm.
you don't sit around and complain about how it's not working. Like, get busy, then try something else, try again, try again, try again. And when my kids make mistakes, even what I've learned is, as a mom, not to shame them.
Mm.
I ask them, okay, oh geez, like, I remember one conversation having with my son, and he was saying, I always trusted him. They're smart kids. And I remember there's something going on at school, and I remember I said, "Oh," and as a mom, I was like fired up. I'm telling you, I was in my head like, I'm gonna burn their parents' house. I was mad, like, just I mean, I just straight not normal. And I remember being like, okay, that's my crap. Like, we do not do that. But I remember saying to him, how do you want to deal with this situation? And he was like, well, I think this is what I'm going to do here. And I'm like, okay, and what are our options? And he's like, well, this is what I think. I said, okay, do you need me to do anything? Besides, burning the world down around me, like,
Uh,
and he was like, no, no. And I said, okay, let me know how it goes. Like, it was really great to watch him formulate his own little plans, and then I was just the support team. I was like, okay, so if it didn't work out well, I was the person that was like, so what could we have done differently?
Mhm.
What would you have done knowing what you know now? Like, I guess you and I are the same way. We make decisions every day and then we deviate when we need to. I mean, our kids are no different, but when we don't shame them, what were you thinking? Probably the
Oh.
good with their underdeveloped brain. Like, what do we expect?
Mhm.
Like, let's raise them in an environment where they can make mistakes healthily, and they'll go out in the world. They'll be fine. They're gonna have some. And I mean, no one learned things because it was easy. I think some of the hardest challenges is what we grow through. What and having a parent like yourself in your children's life to show them what strength looks like, even if it's scared sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know the story that your children will tell you about what they saw with your
Mm.
struggles, with your own health issues. I hope it's one that they can say, you know what, she showed up like real.
Mhm.
So it's healing salve, right? When you show up and you say, I'm sorry, I'm flawed. I love you. I don't do
Mhm.
everything right, but I love you, and I will continue to try to keep doing better.
And that's just such a beautiful thing. And what I'm recognizing from this is forgiving my parents for the things that they didn't do the way I thought that they should have. Like, do you know what I mean? It's
Right?
like when you have your own kids, you realize how hard it actually is.
Yeah, and exactly how hard it is, how generations vary from generation to
Mhm.
generation, and the belief systems and all of that. Like, yeah, I truly believe that. Like, I mean, I do believe, and we can say two things at once. We can say, I truly know my parents did the best, and we can also hold space for the fact that it just was a piss poor effort, too. Like, it doesn't, you're not being disrespectful in the sense that you are acknowledging it's hard to be a parent. And I think that's the truth, right? And
Mhm.
how do we know this until really, like, maybe like we become parents and then we're humbled?
It's so true, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh my
like,
gosh, it's like 10 after 8 or 10 after 7 already.
oh wow, look at us go here.
Oh, I know, right? This was
I,
so awesome. Thank you so much. I love that we get to talk about these things. Like I said, I just had such a huge awareness, and that is just like literally why I want to keep doing this, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely. I think that everybody can be teachers, and at any
Mm,
given
mm-hmm.
point, like, we all have, I don't know, I see my life as every single person that I meet, whether I it's an honest truth, but like every single person that I meet is a teacher to me, if only I
Mm.
listen with an open heart rather than with judgment.
Oh, that is so beautiful. It's so true. That is just so beautiful.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, especially the ones that drive us bonkers. Well, you know what? They're here to teach us a lesson.
It is true, you know. That's why we can never judge anyone. I mean, we do at first, like we're human, right?
Right.
But once we judge it and get it pissed off about it, we're like, I can see why this showed up because
Yeah.
I learned a lesson that I wouldn't have learned without it. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
like
it's like
for
what you
sure.
it is. It's like you like what you said. Like I'm the blame. Like, I am the problem of
Mm.
my problem.
Like, right, all the fucking
Yeah,
time.
yeah, and I think that's kind of neat. Like, I'm the problem of my problem. I'm also the solution. Like,
Oh, that is a good one. Like, for sure, right?
yeah.
Oh God. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next conversation because this is fun. I love this so much. I think it's going to be really great for people to hear these conversations as well.
Well, thank you for doing this. I love this, and I love that you share, and that you are, you just show up. I really appreciate that about you. I mean, I get the giggles because there's been many times where, like, I just love how authentic you are and that you just show up. You show up for the fight. You've showed up for the fight always, and I'm, impressed always about the people like that do this and do this endlessly, tirelessly, because there's genuinely a desire to connect with people and to to change, to help people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, well, I will see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will see you again.
All
Take
right.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Uh,